Hello,
Well,
how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. I apologize for not realizing that this was your day off because it's a state holiday.
That's okay. That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I realized when we booked it, and it's fine.
It's one of those soft holidays,
It's
isn't it?
not a I didn't run the marathon today. So,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
So,
Good to know.
yeah.
Good to know.
It was really nice to have a holiday after Easter. I always feel like the holiday I did had hosted my family for Easter dinner. And I always feel like the day after a big holiday, when you have a big gathering, you should have
Mhm.
off,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah,
that
it's
was
so
really,
it's so also late this year. It's so strange.
yes. Yeah. So, okay. Hi.
Everything's good though.
Hello.
Everything's good though, Marianne.
Yeah.
I know you're super busy.
Yes.
There's so much going on, but
It is very busy.
yeah,
Yes, it's very busy. Um, but it's all fine.
that's
Um,
good.
yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to clean up my desk. Things are falling over. My desk
Okay.
is a mess. I am paying attention though. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
all fine.
So did you have minutes like from, I was just saying to, I was texting Kate because like I couldn't find the minutes and then she thought you took them last time because we talked about the naming thing for most of the meeting.
Oh, I didn't take them.
Because
Was
Mel was sick. I didn't take them either.
oh, Mel wasn't there.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was sick.
So, I didn't take them. I can go back and take them from the recording.
Okay.
Um, the
Do you mind
month
if
before
Alma
that.
was sorry, Marion, go ahead.
Okay. I think the month before that, we had one other month when Mel wasn't there. Um, but I don't really remember. I'll go back and
Yeah, I don't even have my calendar right here. I
right.
realize.
And there should be like an AI meeting summary, I would think.
Oh yeah, that's right. Zoom.
Or there might be. So I will let
Okay.
me send myself a note right now,
Okay.
to um
I
Okay.
I
to
think
find.
that's right. I think what we decided was just to go with the AI summary.
I don't
Okay.
remember that, but yeah, it's doing that
I
now, right?
think so,
Okay.
but I don't
Yeah. Okay. I'll,
remember for sure
yeah,
either.
I'll,
Okay.
so that would have been the March trustee
Yeah,
meeting.
I think I missed the February, I think. I know I missed one. I don't have my calendar right here, so.
Right. Okay.
Was I here for March? I can't even remember.
Me
Yeah,
neither.
I don't
There
remember.
was one you
Um,
missed because I think you were sick. And
yeah,
I missed one, but I don't actually remember
yeah.
about looking. That's all right if we're a little behind, no big deal.
Yeah. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Hi, Pam. I'm trying to make you guys all so that we're all big. Here we go. Oh, that's right. It's going to speaker. Okay.
Doesn't have to. You can put it on gallery.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I thought I did, but it was still in the small box in the corner. So anyway, are you traveling, Kate?
So much.
I thought you were, but aren't you going to look at colleges this week?
No, we were
No?
thinking about it, but then we decided against it. I'm going to the Society of American Journalists Conference in Tempe to speak on Friday, and then I'm in Washington, DC for all the fun and games next week.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm back on Friday, so. And then I was in Brazil for 2 weeks.
Oh, you were. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hey, Brad's here. Hey, Brad.
I'm even visible.
Hi,
You
Brad.
are.
So we're just waiting for Mel and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But noting that we have a quorum already, so we can wait for them for a few. This is the gather and agenda check part, and I know that Elizabeth already sent an addition for
right. The name,
um,
I think a
question
logo
about
thing,
logos.
new logo, yeah.
Did we have
Which
minutes? I did.
no, we
Okay.
don't think we do. So we're gonna scratch that part from the agenda.
While we're waiting, I'm gonna go into the Zoom account and see if I see, oh, I just have to pay attention to the waiting room. Okay,
Here's Elizabeth.
okay.
Hi, Elizabeth, welcome. You're in a room that I love.
Thank you.
Was that like the kids' playroom?
It's the playroom, yeah.
It's very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Do you get to play in there too?
Nice, she does. And because we're zooming, we get to be there a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It was nice to see you Friday.
Yeah, you too.
We were at the roundabout for the Indivisible, Western Quabbin Indivisible.
Thank you.
Yeah. There were a lot of people there. Like about probably a couple hundred people were estimating.
Excellent.
Yeah.
At which roundabout?
The intersection of like North Pleasant and East Pleasant Street in Amherst. And I don't know the other name that goes by the high school. I forget the name of that street.
Triangle?
Yeah, you're right. So right there, that roundabout right there, which is a very busy spot. There was a lot of waving and a lot of honking. And most everybody was so supportive of what we're standing there with our sign. So it was great. It's going to be every Friday if anybody, 4 to 5:30 if anybody wants to join.
So good to know. Okay, I don't know about Mel, but
So I
we,
just texted her, she's gonna jump on.
Okay,
oh,
I didn't know.
thank
you
you.
I think, anyway, today's a holiday. Happy Marathon Day.
Happy Patriots Day.
I
Hey,
know it's Patriots Day.
it's really nice to know that our whole country is because of Massachusetts, right? And what we did 250 years ago.
But is that what Patriots Day is about?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Isn't it the
The
commemoration of the ride and the
That's
Right,
right.
the shot around the world that started the whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah, work toward independence. Yes. Yep. Someone else that should be in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She thought it was tomorrow because of the holiday.
yeah, we could have done that.
My phone started everything that not everything I've said, but it's odd. It's my phone wants to text her everything I've said. So I just deleted all of that.
Oh, that's good.
So
My
right.
my introduction to peaceful protests was 50 years ago at the Concord Bridge. I went to the People's Bicentennial Commission when President Ford showed up for the 200th anniversary.
Huh.
It was on the other side of the river, but anyway, yeah, it was pretty cool to think about that. Wow, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Once you
Yeah,
get to,
I don't think the
with crazy news,
bicentennial was 50 years
with
ago.
crazy news, like, like I was in college and like they had the thing started at midnight. We had like Pete Seeger, Arlo Guthrie, Che Guevara, Joan Baez, all these people were there, right? And like, I don't remember bringing a sleeping bag. I think my friends and I, luckily one of them brought a tarp because it rained and it's April, it's cold, and we just spent the night out there outside under a tarp, and
people can
I
survive.
walked around to the other side the next day and booed President Ford, but anyway, that's just
I'm a
that's
little
all me for you,
concerned.
but don't put that in the minutes, even though it's our
All right, here's Mel.
Anyway,
Great. Thank you. And oops, connecting to audio. Yes. There's Mal.
And Elizabeth.
Hey, so sorry. For some
No
reason, I
worries.
had in my head that it was
Yeah.
tomorrow night.
Okay.
'Cause today was,
Reasonable.
so yeah, so sorry.
good to see you.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah. All
Elizabeth
right.
is here. She just has her video off. So
No worries. Okay, so here we are assembled, so I'm gonna just call us to order. It's my privilege to chair tonight. And we are going to dispense with minutes for this evening because I think last time we met, we decided to just sort of go with the AI summary because Mel was out. Mel, is that you were indeed out last time, is that correct? Am I remembering this properly?
No, we have meeting minutes from March 3rd.
Oh,
Ah,
third.
I don't know that people have read them. I have not.
No, because I haven't sent them because I was
Okay.
looking at them tomorrow.
Okay,
Sorry.
so no worries. But that solves the mystery. So thank you for that. And we'll just do it next time. Okay. So for today, I am looking at the agenda and I think just so what we have on the agenda is director updates, building committee updates. We're going to take a look at the other libraries' room naming policies. We have a question about logo for our new library that Elizabeth added to our agenda. Question about how we can support restoration of MBLC funding. What we might want to do to honor our longtime volunteer Janice Gray, who died a few weeks ago, and setting our next meeting time and agenda. Any additions to that agenda for tonight? I'm hearing none, so I'm just going to go right over to you, Marianne, for the director's updates.
all right. So let's see. So on April 11th, I went to a library conference. It is the first library conference I've gone to in person since COVID. So it was the Library Summit on Social Cohesion. It was an all-day event. There were 3 speakers. Sandra Harris, who's the co-founder of the Massachusetts Coalition to Build Community and End Loneliness. And you might remember that last September, the library hosted a Good Neighbor Day party at the SAC, which was a huge smashing success. And that came out of this. So this coalition advocated to Governor Healy to declare whatever date that was, September 28th or something, Good Neighbor Day. And then they put out a call to organizations to plan events. And so then I was at this library conference, and the person who came up with that whole idea spoke. And then a woman named Beth Waller, who she's a social worker, and she has a podcast called Surviving the Stacks. She specializes in social work for libraries. And then Noah Lenstra, who he's the director of Let's Move in Libraries, which is an organization that I follow. And then he's written a book called Healthy Living at the Library. And the overall theme was libraries can be a resource for social cohesion, and that promoting social cohesion is more important than ever. So I left the conference with a renewed commitment to ensuring that Shutesbury residents and Shutesbury's library users are aware of the opportunities that for social cohesion provided by the library. And of course, that will be easier to provide once our new building opens. Let's see, our series of 9 art workshops funded by the New Salem Academy is nearing the end. So these are opportunities for social cohesion. There's a marbling on fabric workshop on Sunday, May 4th, and then a collage workshop on June 5th. And so since January until June, we'll have had these 9 art workshops. I'm scheduled for jury duty on Tuesday, May 6th, let's hope that doesn't turn into a thing. And I've already put it off once. Let's see, Library Giving Day was another remarkable success. 124 donors gave $30,855. The spring egg hunt on Saturday was a huge success. About 150 people, 55 to 60 of them children, came and had a wonderful time. 8 volunteers helped sort stuff and hide the eggs. And now on to new library construction. Most of the windows are now in. Several layers of the roof are complete. Framing on the interior continues. The contractor is responsible for making mock-ups of the roofing, siding, and window details, which are inspected by the architect before being applied to the building. And so soon the roofers will fabricate the mock-up of the metal roof, and then that will go on. I think metal is next. And so there's decking, and then a moisture barrier, and then insulation, and plywood, and another moisture barrier that's done on the entire roof. And then there's some details all around, and then but the next main level will be the metal roof. And then the solar panels will go on top of that. The electrician, plumber, and HVAC subcontractors will begin installation of their various systems in the next week. Overall, the project is a good 6 weeks behind schedule. Construction is currently scheduled to be complete by mid-September, and then it'll be at least another month or so after construction is complete before we can open. I've been gathering quotes for from shelving vendors, which is much harder than it sounds. I feel like I have been gathering quotes from shelving vendors since at least November, so for months.
Wow.
And we've gone back and forth with 2 of the vendors. And anyway, we're reviewing the quotes and expect to choose a shelving vendor by mid-May. And that was as far as I got in my notes, and that seems like a lot. So, okay.
I had a question. I'll just jump in. I believe that we won't get the federal earmark that we were hoping to get. And that's not a barrier for the solar.
No, so the solar panels are an eligible expense from the MBLC.
Yeah,
With the earmark, we were really calling it, like we talked about all of the sustainable energy systems and the solar. So while we were doing that, the select board was working on this municipal vulnerability
right. Assessment
program
project.
grant, right? And so the select board got a grant, an MVP grant, that the original grant was to cover the solar and the Ford Lightning pickup truck. The Ford Lightning pickup truck is not designed to power a building like this. So we went back to MVP and asked if they would consider, first we asked if they would consider helping to fund a generator, and they said no. But they are willing, and they've signed a contract to pay for some battery storage. So the MVP grant, so the town did the select board did the first contract with them. I did a contract update in early January, and it was based on the schedule that we had at that time, which had solar panels going in by the end of this fiscal year. Solar panels are not going to be installed by the end of this fiscal year, and the battery storage system is also not going to be complete. So I need to do a new contract update. And when I spoke to our coordinator with MVP, he wasn't encouraging about pushing all of this funding into the next fiscal year. So the contract update is due May 1st. And 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 I won't have any new, so the architect just sent so how this works, if there's going to be a change to the project, the architect design or the architect's subcontractors or design, engineers and things design the change to the project, and then they give that change to the project to the contractor who then quotes pricing on that change. So that request for pricing for the battery storage system was just given to the contractor today. So there's no way I'm going to have that in time for the contract update. Although I do know that one thing is going to be more expensive than they originally said. So, but anyway, so if the MVP grant falls through because we can't push it off until the next fiscal year, then the solar panels are still eligible for the grant from the Board of Library Commissioners. The Board of Library Commissioners will cover 75%. The MVP grant was going to cover 90%, and then the MBLC would have covered 75% of the remaining 10%. So I'm going to do the grant amendment and submit it, and then see what they say. And then I haven't asked, but I don't think the battery storage will be an eligible cost from the MBLC. So the worst thing is we're back to having solar panels and no battery storage. So the architects have designed a hookup for a roll-up generator. So they don't think that we can't have a permanent on-site generator, mostly for space issues. So we're thinking, and they say that we can rent a roll-up generator. I don't think renting a roll-up generator in Western Massachusetts is practical, although I have found a company. I haven't actually spoken to them, but I did find a company online that rents generators. Whether or not they rent the size we'll need is, I don't know. But anyway, we probably should have a generator for in the winter because we don't want pipes to freeze. That's why you have a generator. So anyway, so I think the worst scenario is we're back to having those solar panels covered 75% by the MBLC, and we're buying a roll-up generator, and we don't have battery storage. And so that's another thing that I've been working on. Another funding thing that happened, just since you brought it up, is you'll remember that when the bids came in and we met with the select board, so the trustees, the select board, and the building committee met, and the finance committee was at that meeting in early June. And the select board dedicated what they thought was the remaining earmark funds from the state to the project. And they thought it was about $50,000 at the time. So this week, earlier this week, last week, we're in this week now, the town accountant didn't have documentation so we have the best town accountant in the history of the world. She just knows her stuff. And she makes me feel so confident about anything that I do related to her, because she is not going to do something if it's not the right thing. So she didn't have documentation that said that she could spend that earmark on the library. So I said, okay, let me find that documentation. So I went back to Senator Comerford's office, and the earmark was very general. It was just on capital improvements for the town of Shutesbury. But then in the course of that, we discovered that that there's not $50,000 left. There's only $40,000 left.
Mm-hmm.
So, and anyway, that took a day and a half to figure all of that stuff out. So, so, but it's still, so that's a little bit of less money we have from that. And then we may not have the MVP grant. And if we do have the MVP grant, it still costs us money because I won't have, the full, I don't think I'll have the full amount of cost when I put in this next contract revision. And how many contract revisions will they even entertain? So anyway, that's all, it's all complicated but I'm on top of it all. And so let's see, so in January, we did the contract revision. We had to do a ad service agreement with the architect so that the solar designers would design the batteries. We knew that was a risk. Um, they have now finally, so it's January, now we're April. I guess it's 3 months later. So 4 months later, and they finally have finished that battery storage design. And now we're waiting for the pricing. So things just take time. Um, and in the meantime, they're not ready to put the solar panels on the building. So, and it's sometimes frustrating that the project is behind schedule, but I don't think it's unusual for the project to be behind schedule.
It can't be, because it's just like Kate's first rule, everything takes longer.
Right,
It's just,
right.
it's just my
Yes.
first rule for life.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right, and
Thank you.
my
Go
and my
ahead.
husband being a contractor, that's just the general rule. Yeah.
Yes.
But thank you, Marianne. That was really informative.
It was, thanks. Does anyone else we have one more minute for this. Does anyone have any other questions before we move on? Thank you. It's great to see where we are, and however, yes, some delays, but so much progress. So, all right, we are moving now to the question of other library naming policies. And I guess I wanted to just start the conversation by saying one thing that I noted is it seems like, we can do what we want. The Friends can do what they want. There's, as far as I can tell, one downside risk that we've seen so far, which is attaching a name to like the so-and-so children's room, and then we don't want that to be the children's room, and we've locked ourselves into it being the children's room. And so maybe we just call it the so-and-so room, and no problem. Is it really that simple? Did anybody else see anything else that's makes it any harder than that?
Hmm. Yeah, that makes
Excellent.
sense. Makes sense to me.
So I guess then, what I'd like
We
to
could,
know,
we could even have it say something in the contract along the lines of the name of the room might change, what the room is used for might change, but the name will stay on it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
yeah. So Elizabeth, as the Friends liaison, is there anything else that Friends need from trustees on this to move forward, do you think?
What do you think, Marianne?
No.
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 No, I think that, so I think, and I hope to have it ready by tonight, but I didn't. So I think the trustees should make a policy, and, like adopt an official policy. And it doesn't, I mean, I sent you a handful of examples,
Yeah.
and I think it can be one page. Um, and, um, and then, I think the Friends can continue. I mean, and really the plan is there's one family that's approached me, and And while this may get posted on the website, there isn't a plan to actively solicit namers, people to name spaces. There's, it's really just about being ready to have this conversation with this family when the family's ready to have the conversation.
Mhm.
And I'm in regular conversation with the family. So, Brad has his hand up.
Go ahead, Brad.
And I'm not muted. I can speak. I don't know that this really applies to us, but I'll mention it anyway. I'm retired from 1794 Meeting House up in New Salem, and they got pews. And no, the pews were there. They have plaques on the pews saying, donated by so and so. And I failed for 11 years to get those pews out the door and gone. They are in the way. And maybe it will happen, maybe it won't. But anyway, if they ever did manage to take the pews out and put in seating that was better for the meeting house, there goes all those plaques. So the one thought I have is to not say anywhere named in perpetuity, named forever. In my mind, I imagine 50 years from now, something happens and a new extension gets put on. And when that happens, some room gets changed, totally changed in the process. And maybe that was a named room. So it's always a little funny if you name something and tell people that it's perpetual, because a lot of life isn't perpetual.
Well, it's none of it, as far as I can tell so far. Go ahead, Pam.
One of the things that Marianne sent had a qualifier in there that said the naming of this thing is not in perpetuity. So I thought that was a really valuable thing to have in the policy, that it says that, and so they did some explaining. There were different pieces of each of those ones that she sent that I thought were interesting, and the one didn't even, it was just a one-page thing that said, if you're interested in naming a room, basically like see the librarian, or you know what I mean? So because we don't have to have it out there for the public unless somebody asks, then it's off to the side.
I have a document that I drafted on the 3rd of March after, which I think might have been our previous meeting. What I would dearly love to do is send this to someone who can finalize it in accordance with the feedback that we've given. Like, I already took out the words in perpetuity, and I already sort of said the name goes with the area, not the function. Okay. But if someone wanted to wordsmith this so that we could wrap it up as policy, I think we could probably just vote on it at our next meeting. Does that seem, well, let me ask a couple of things. Does anyone object to that idea?
No.
Okay. Does
I love
anyone want to volunteer to whip this thing into shape for us to review and vote on next time? She said, hopefully.
Can I nominate someone?
You're free to, but I don't think we can volunteer people, which is always my favorite approach.
I love that word though. I've never heard that word, volunteer. I feel like I volunteer people all the time.
Own it, sister. Go ahead. Who are you
I nominate
asking?
Elizabeth.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right, Elizabeth, I will email you the doc right after we're done. And I hope this isn't too onerous. I don't think
And you
it's
can
gonna
ask me
be.
questions, Elizabeth, and then curse me to all your friends. So
Sounds good.
Excellent. Well, that was pretty quick. If you all don't mind, I'm going to start a draft of an email to Elizabeth right this minute, just so I don't forget. and I will actually do what I said I was gonna do. Just for novelty's sake. And then Elizabeth, while you're squarely on the spot, are you willing to stay there for a bit and lead us in the logo discussion that you suggested?
Sure. So as we come up on the opening of the new library, it might make sense to have a logo or some branding on stuff that we give out at the grand opening, or that we sell at the grand opening, or that we sell at the library later. And with, it may take time to develop a logo and then time to get it printed. I thought maybe now would be a good time to start discussing that.
Oh, that sounds like a good idea.
Do we want to open it up to some of the artists in town to give us ideas? We have a lot of talented people in town, unless somebody has some idea.
We could consider it like a little bit like do you remember when Shutesbury Net was looking for their name and their logo? I remain disappointed that like my 8-year-old wasn't chosen. Because I'm petty like that. But seriously, we could open it up for anyone. And one thing that we could do is, I don't know if we really have time to manage this, so I'm not looking at you for this part, Marianne, but maybe others can take it on, is we could invite the children to do it. And then if we needed a sort of a more professionally drawn iteration of what they do, we could see if there's a graphic design. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. But I love the idea of opening it up and welcoming people to contribute, whether we are looking for professionals or where we're just sort of more open as a fun thing. It'd be a great like first art display for the library, for example.
Yeah, had you already had some thoughts about it, Elizabeth? Is that why you brought it up, or just thinking ahead?
I was thinking ahead, and I've also asked a couple friends in town. I have 3 friends who I've asked to give us prototypes that we could look at in the future at future meetings and see sort of what direction we'd like to go in.
That's probably so much more efficient than my idea and probably a lot easier to manage too.
So I happen to know in my brain knows that logo contests are problematic. Um, and, and so I think if there are people um, who are willing to kind of think about doing it. So if Elizabeth knows people that are willing to do it and willing to do it without compensation, um, and they submit things that, so this would be a logo for the new Shutesbury, for the Shutesbury Public Library. Um, then that seems like as good a way to go as any. And so this came up, did this come up at a turkey trot meeting or what? Yeah, okay. And um and I said, well, if we're gonna sell stuff with a library logo on it, really the trustees have to approve the library logo, so, and not this rogue turkey trot group. They could, they have a great logo, the turkey trot thing. So I think sort of a smaller, more targeted thing probably makes more sense.
I agree.
I think you're right. So I think we sort of can do this and we have done it before. We just sort of delegate to Elizabeth to sort of continue what she's already doing and on this initiative, and you'll let us know when, if you need help or whether you have stuff for us to look at or just any point at which trustees need to support.
And I will say that all 3 of the designers that I've asked are preschool or kindergarten mothers. So if you have any friends in other demographics in Shutesbury who are designers, I'd welcome talking to them as well about it.
That's what I was thinking. Not that I can think of any off the top of my head, but maybe in our conversations just in town, maybe, just so that we could suggest it so nobody feels left out. But I can't think of any designers off the top of my head, but I'm sure they're out there. We have a lot of talented people in town. Okay.
Excellent.
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a great idea to get started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just excited to think that, there's going to be a real building that needs a real logo and real swag.
We
And
have a
I bring this information back to the three designers I have in mind. Is there anything that we have, do we have any ideas, or can they just sort of use their imagination as long as it says Shutesbury Public Library?
I have no ideas. I think that we should just let them be open. They live here. They might have like great ideas, right? They're
Okay.
designers. Yeah.
I mean, the usual thing that when I've ever done branding stuff before is just ask people to take another look at the mission. Which is just, you have access to, just make sure that, they read that and think about the visual expression of it. But anybody who's a good designer is going to do that. So
Sounds good.
awesome. All right. I think we're moving on swiftly through the agenda. Yeah, federal cuts and are spending a fair amount of time on this subject lately. And could we start with just sort of an update for those who are more in the weeds on this particular cut than I think what I heard is that, no, let me just ask someone else who's in the weeds to go.
All right. So the Trump administration cut funding for the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is the federal agency that supports libraries.
Mhm.
The Board of Library Commissioners gets some of their operating budget comes from a grant from the IMLS, about $3.5 million. So right off the bat, they found programs to cut. And and then the rest they felt like they could run through the end of this fiscal year. So right off the bat, they cut at the MBLC had they curated a collection of manga for use in prisons in the state. I can't even begin to talk about how important it is to provide a ongoing, up-to-date, collection of manga for prisoners. So they cut all of the professional development for library staff. So they had contracts, 3 different contracts. And then the other thing that the MBLC funds with IMLS money is the Commonwealth Catalog, which is that's one of the 2 things that'll have the biggest impact in Shutesbury if funding disappears. So we're members of CW Mars, which is a consortium of 155 plus libraries. And there are other consortiums across the state, and there's the Boston Public Library, and there are some academics. And the Commonwealth Catalog combines all of those consortiums and the BPL. And so any one of you can if you don't find what you're looking for in CW Mars, you can look in the Commonwealth Catalog and you can place holds in the Commonwealth Catalog. And it's really a remarkable statewide resource. And it's fully funded by by money from the IMLS. Another thing that the state funds, so through CW Mars, Shutesbury Library users have access to the Overdrive collection, which is more commonly referred to now as Libby, because Libby is the app that we use. And so CW Mars has a Libby account and has a Libby collection. And then all of the other networks also have a Libby account and a Libby collection. And the Boston Public Library has a Libby collection. And the state has a thing called, it's LEA. And I don't know what those letters stand for. I can't, even if I looked them up an hour ago, I wouldn't remember because they don't, I would have called it something else. So, um, but it, so if you look for something in Libby and they don't have it, you have to register your card, your CW Mars card for each of the different networks, but then your Libby account will look for it in all of those networks and they'll say, well, we don't have it, but BPL has it, and you can either borrow it now or place a hold. And so that is funded, that connectivity is funded by the IMLS. And each of the networks get a significant amount of money for collection development in their own Libby platform. So CW Mars is was expecting to get $100,000 for collection development in the CW Mars Libby account. CW Mars also put some of their own budget into the CW Mars Libby collection development account. But $100,000 is not an insignificant amount of money. Digital books and digital audiobooks are a lot more expensive than print books or even physical audiobooks, which is counterintuitive, but there you have it. And so it's likely that CW Mars will have less money to buy to curate their collection. And they might be able to, like each of the networks might be able to fund that connectivity, or the state might find money to fund that connectivity. The other thing that's funded by IMLS funds is the databases, and databases are used more by schools. But they are used, in bigger communities, people will use them. And every once in a while, I look at the encyclopedia that's available through the databases. But it'll be a really big impact on schools and colleges, and our public schools don't have the funding to buy these statewide databases. So last week, and I think I forwarded it to all of you, the MBLC sent out an update, and they sent out an update about state funding for libraries, which is really now all that we have control over. And this library funding has been level funded in the state budget so far, which is not terrible, but the MBLC every year makes a request that they call the legislative agenda. And there was a link to that in that email that I forwarded to all of you. And I think that the MBLC was asking us to advocate to our state legislators for the library legislative agenda. So I think that would be the most possibly an effective means of advocacy. I know that Jim McGovern and Senators Warren and Markey are big supporters of libraries and the IMLS. And so anyway, that's all the information I have right now. Things are worse in other states.
So, Marianne, is it worth even writing anything to our like McGovern and Moran or Markey, or is that money just definitely gone? It's like it's so confusing because so many things say they're gonna be cut and then they reinstate the money, and when people complain. So do you know, is it completely gone?
I would say that Well, first of all, I don't know, right? Kate, do you know? No, right? We don't know.
Sort
Um,
of. We
right,
sort of do.
right,
Okay, insofar as if we're talking about current fiscal year money that has
right.
already been allocated, authorized, and appropriated, then he doesn't actually, can't do that by executive order unless Congress just doesn't do anything about it, which so far is their strategy, the majority strategy. But Congress has the power of the purse. Congress has already made this decision. The proper way to do it is through the regular budget process. Now, so there's like 3 different stages, and we are in the beginning of what's called budget reconciliation, which is when the two houses need to come together and create the upcoming fiscal year's budget. I believe we're also still on a CR, a continuing resolution, for the budget, which complicates things a little bit. I would say that if we're in Massachusetts and what we want to do is think about federal support for libraries, we ought to be working closely with libraries in Richie Neal's district, because he's on Ways and Means. And Ways and Means always has an enormous role to play in reconciliation, because the only things that you can do via budget reconciliation, according to most parliamentarian rules, are spend money or raise it. Okay, so if we wanted to work with fellow trustees, or, for a larger sort of delegation that either supported libraries in his district or worked with the whole delegation to DC to ask, Representative Neal to make this a priority, but just knowing that budget reconciliation is a simple 50, 50+1 majority. And so realistically, unless this is a huge priority in states that are much more purple than ours, there's not going to be a whole lot we're going to do. It's just kind of how it is. So then the question for the state legislators is, this is one thing that's getting cut at the federal level, but a whole bunch of other stuff is too. And how is the state going to manage to fill shortfalls, and where? And so, and then the third question that I think we should all be asking ourselves, just as people in civil society, is where is philanthropy going to step up? Because there's like whole huge swaths of stuff where philanthropy doesn't have the pockets, but for something like this in a given state, they do. So, sorry, that's kind of a lot for me, but we are looking at a few things. There's budget reconciliation. There's a whole rescission process where they are trying to sort of go through Congress for what they're calling passbacks or clawbacks of already allocated authorized funds. If the money isn't in the states, my understanding is that the money isn't already in the coffer to which it's been allocated, then that rescission is much easier to do. So that's what my day is like, y'all.
Yeah, that's the part that I was unclear about, like if it's, even though they say it's been appropriated, like, because I was reading the paper today about what happened to the Pacomptuck Museum in Old Deerfield. They've been awarded money in January and they were told it was cut immediately. They had a $300,000 grant and it was cut immediately. So like, that's why I was trying to figure out, I read what MBLC's been sending out and what you sent, but I just wasn't a little unclear about where we stand at this point. So I've been advocating for things anyway. It doesn't hurt, right? But I just wasn't sure what the latest was.
I do think that, for what it's worth, I think we know who our legislators are, and we know where they stand. If we're going to send a letter, it should always include a thank you first. They're fighting as hard as they possibly can,
They
every
are.
single one of them. And
Right.
so saying thank you first, and, saying, we hope that you can, do your best on this. And we always thank you for your leadership and your service to your constituents. That's the kind of like, even if it goes nowhere, getting thanked right now means the world to people. And they are people. And they're people we know.
Right, right,
I will
right.
say that Congressman McGovern will say that they want to hear from us. And I haven't been calling and emailing as much as I sometimes do, but there was um a letter that, one Democratic congressperson somewhere in the country wrote on behalf of the IMLS. And they were asking for people to sign on. And I did call Congressman McGovern's office to make sure that he had signed on, that he knew about it, and he had signed on to the letter.
Yeah.
And but that was several weeks ago. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So
that's what I heard at McGovern's town hall too in Greenfield a month or so ago. The same thing. And Elizabeth Warren too, whenever I see her on, TV or something, she's just like wanting to hear from people. So, and, and Marky's office is always great replying every time I send something. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Senator Markey's office is collecting stories. On, there's a link on his website. These are things that because Michelle has brought this up a couple of times, the other thing that has been cut is LSTA grants in the state of Massachusetts. I forgot to mention that. So they cut those right away too.
tell me
So
what that is again, the library.
Library Service and Technology Act. So the
Technology.
MBLC gets money from the IMLS, and then
Mhm,
they grant it to libraries. And we've had a couple of those over the
mhm,
years. And so so libraries that were told, 6 weeks ago that they got a grant, were then turned around and told that they weren't getting their grants. And those aren't those are for special programming that ends up changing the culture of your library for the better,
mhm.
and so that's another thing that happened. But I don't have time to sort of be the person writing the letters about this. And
I'm happy to do it. That's why I brought it up like a while
okay.
ago, because as soon as I read that about NBLC, I was like, oh my God, we got to do something. I
Yes,
took a lot of notes. I'm willing to
yes.
write it and share it for feedback. I mean, I feel
Mhm.
like, I've done, I could probably do more too, but I feel like I'm constantly doing something. Like just the other day, I did, when I heard Elizabeth Warren has this new Save Our Schools, I wrote in a bunch of stuff about my experience and how important all this money is, having been in special education my entire career.
Yeah.
Like it's really important. So I thought, not that I've heard from her, her office isn't as good as replying as the others, but anyway. But
Yeah.
I did my due diligence, so.
Thank
Well, I
you.
Oh,
do think
maybe if
that,
you, oh,
sorry,
sorry.
Elizabeth, no, you go ahead.
Maybe if you write the letter, then we can all sign it as trustees too.
That's
I'll figure
absolutely,
it
yeah.
out.
I just would want feedback from people though, but because it's a lot,
Yeah. I
but
think that's what I was going to say. If we're all kind of getting to the same, I do think a trustees letter to all of our elected officials, thanking them for what they do and their leadership here, and knowing that they can call on us if they need testimonials or anything like that. That I think is really productive, and nothing that I said is intended to encourage civic participation, which we desperately need. I just also want to be realistic about where we're at and what I do understand about the federal process, where, I think there's lots of ways that this is hitting, and I think there's lots of different pressure points that people are putting on different parts of the system. So, and I think things are, I refuse to give up hope, because it's free to keep it, so might as well. I did, thank you. Michelle, if you wanted to take the hand on drafting that, recognizing our next meeting. I heard Ways and Means next week.
meets next week. Okay.
their markup is what I heard. They're trying to do their markup next week. So if there was anything that anybody wanted to do and had time to do this week, because this is a recess week, to connect to any trustees in Representative Neal's district, this is the week to do it.
Okay.
Okay. We haven't seen the president's budget yet either. Just a note, that's always like a thing that happens that almost never gets passed, but this year may be different. Then I did just want to know if we can move on to, because we're getting close to time. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone, and thank you, Michelle, for bringing this to us.
Yeah, thank you.
So Janice Gray, many of us knew her, and if you did, it was almost impossible not to admire her, I think, and be grateful for all the work she did at our library. I do wonder whether we could think of a thing in the news space, or whether whether we want to think of something in the news space, or we want to think of something now, or we're thinking like a donation, or are we thinking a paver that people might want to, I don't know what kind of ideas we have.
I don't know either, but after, the email you sent, Marianne, it made me think we need to do something to honor her. I guess I didn't realize how long she had volunteered in the library and to what degree. I knew she would really worked actively on the town newsletter, which was great. So I had nothing in particular in mind. I just,
Pavers are done, oh, I beg your
Pavers
pardon,
are
but pavers are off the table,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
that was bad.
Pavers are done, and so she bought a paver, and then somebody did buy a paver in her honor before she died,
Good.
so
Nice.
which is really
Okay.
nice.
That's great.
And
do you have any ideas? I mean, Marianne, or
I didn't have anything in particular. It's when I sent that out to you, I just wanted you to know, because she was, because she was just part of the library, and it was very important to her.
Mhm.
I saw her, when she, so she, in about 2 weeks before she died, she announced on Facebook that she was in hospice, and so I brought some flowers by. I didn't intend to go inside, um, but her husband, Patrick, saw me out the window and told her that I was there, and she said, you go and get her and bring her inside. So I was lucky enough to get to see her, and she was disappointed that she wasn't going to get to see the new library.
Library. Yeah.
And she was concerned because she hadn't gathered together everything she wanted to for the library tag sale. And
Oh,
so um so I want us to remember to to remember her out loud at the grand opening,
mhm. Yeah.
and um and then I don't know what else to do.
I have an
What
idea.
about,
At the turkey trot, she was the finish line person for the last 2 years.
Oh,
So
she
we
was.
could have the announcer announce the passing of one of our finish line people in his speech.
We could. And
Good idea.
could the finish line be the Janice Gray
Yeah,
turkey trot
yeah,
finish line?
Why
that would be
not?
perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Could we ask the turkey trot crew that question at the next meeting, Elizabeth? I think
We're the
so.
trustees. I think that we can probably just tell them to do it.
No, the trustees can't tell the friends what to do. And the friends can't tell the trustees what to do, but they can nicely ask each other things. And
I'm sorry.
and I think that would be, well, that's okay, but I think that would be really lovely. Do people like that idea?
Yeah, that's
yeah, I
great.
like that
I
idea.
didn't
Yeah.
realize she's the finish line person. That makes total sense. Good idea,
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
So
Yeah.
she was there the second year too?
She was, yes.
Okay, all right, yes. I mean, look how dedicated she was, you know?
And both years she wore the hat.
Yes.
What was her hat?
all the turkey trot volunteers wear a little crown.
Oh, yes, okay, okay, yeah. I've had
You've
those
worn
hats, and
one
I
too,
forgot.
Michelle.
Yes, I did. I thought it was maybe a different hat. Yes, I have worn that
Yes,
hat.
yes. Let's do that. Let's ask the turkey trot volunteer crew if we could name it the Janice Gray finish line. And then and I think that would be, and then we could let Patrick know. I think that would be lovely.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe we could get it printed on the first person who runs through finish line.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. we
That's
could do that.
lovely.
Yeah, I
That
think
feels great. Thank
okay.
you.
Oh, good, thanks. Oh, good.
So a few things just to name for our next agenda. I believe we're gonna have a review of previous minutes. We're going to do the regular updates that we do. We're gonna, if Elizabeth's ready to report back on logos, we're gonna hear that. If you're ready to report back on the Janice finish line, we'll hear that. And but, and Michelle, it's kind of up to you. I think I'm trying to figure out about the sign-on letter process because as far as open meeting law is concerned, I think what we should do is if we're gonna do this, if people are comfortable with Miss, we need a committee. We need a dedicated committee to wrap this up, and we need permission from everyone for that committee to finish it and sign it on behalf of all trustees if we want to get it out swiftly enough to insert it anywhere in the reconciliation process. I think before, in other words, it would need to happen before our May meeting, I think.
Right, I agree.
I'm happy to work on that with you, Michelle. Would
Okay.
anyone else like to contribute to that?
What is
I
the,
beg your pardon, backing up. It would be a letter to all of our state and federal officials, thanking them for their support for libraries, letting them know that they have our support as they continue to fight for funding, and encouraging them to continue to do their best, basically. Those would be like the three bullets from my perspective. And we would just write that out with like a little bit more context from I think the NBLC's talking points give us a really good
Right.
start for that.
And maybe a few little points that Marianne has shared in a
Yeah, in terms of like impact on our
a
town.
small community, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Does anyone want to join that? Otherwise, Michelle, you and I can just do it if others are comfortable with that.
You okay with that, everyone? Yeah, okay.
No objection? Okay,
Okay.
so we're a committee, off we go.
Great.
And then can we choose our next meeting date? I believe it would normally be the 12th,
19th.
the 19th. It would normally be the 19th of May. Does that date not work for anyone? It is not ideal for me, I'll say.
Probably the 26th is Memorial Day, wouldn't you think? The federal holiday, yeah.
Yes.
I
Is
can
it
do anything, doesn't matter to me. We could change the day of the week if needed.
Does anyone have a problem with the 12th instead of the,
yeah, I'm not here on the 12th.
okay. Well, I think maybe we can't all be here for the next meeting, and that's just the way it's
That's
gonna have to
fine,
roll.
sure.
So I am agnostic about what's the best date? Can I see a show of hands? Who prefers the 19th? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh,
It doesn't matter, I'll
doesn't
end up
matter.
running for both.
Okay, so the 19th it is, and I'll just be absent.
Okay,
And Michelle, that just means that you and I will have done this work already and gotten it out.
yeah, great,
Okay.
okay. That's good.
I wasn't
Any-
saying I prefer the 19th, but that's a night that's available for me. I'm not free the 26th. I'm free the Tuesdays, 20th, 27th.
Let's just go with the 19th. One missed meeting from me will not kill anybody. I'm confident. And I think, is there anything else we need to do for the good of our order before we wrap up tonight?
I have a
Yes.
question. Can we, is it appropriate, can we talk about dedicating Marianne a room at the,
We cannot dedicate a room to Mary Ann. If a room is dedicated to me, I'm not coming to the groundbreaking ceremony.
Yeah,
what?
we tried this already, Pam, and we got worse than that. So I don't think we're improving.
We can always-
I don't want, so like 4 or 5 pavers have my name on them. I don't need my name on the building or on a room on the building. I just need there to be a building. And it really, I would feel weird about having my name on a room.
Okay,
Okay, but
okay.
thank you. And I've been telling people that. And I say, I'll come back and
Yeah.
haunt you after I die. All kinds of mean things I say.
It's
So-
okay. When you retire, we can do it.
Yep.
We'll
Yeah,
get you, yeah.
it's
We'll get
okay
you.
Yeah,
with me. We
just know
understand.
that I will haunt you after I die, okay?
There's worse things that have happened to me this week, and it's only Monday. All right, y'all. This is a great meeting. Thank you for
Okay.
We
staying
got
a
a lot
little
done tonight.
over.
Thank you.
We did get a lot done. All right, thank you
Yeah,
so much. everybody.
adjourned.
All right,
All
bye-bye.
Safe travels, Kate.
Thanks.
right, okay.